Hello guys, this is Spider. I'm making this video to show you guys how I've been playing Arena. Uh, the suggestion that I have would be to study the hero's abilities and trying to memorize what they do. Let's take a look at some of the hero's abilities here. Lorelei here is uh, one of the heroes that many don't have because you have to pay real money for. Her abilities, the only thing I use on her is Flurry of Knives, with activation percent of 85 and debuff of 40%. She's great in the middle lane, slot number 3, or you can put her in 2 or 4, doesn't matter. But their slot is to maximize her ability. Edward is the straight up buff guy. He buff, as you can see, the 3 teammates or himself and 2 adjacent with pretty high activation. Luca, normally see her in 4th and 5th slot. In the 5th slot mostly would be field repairs to buff her teams whenever an item breaks on her allies. Smoke Bomb is debuff for 30% with activation of 90%. You see her in a debuff team in the 4th slot. Azula, Shake It Off is good against a debuff with activation of 75% is really good. Whenever she get debuff, only happens when she get debuff. Shake It Off will happen, and she'll buff herself 50%. Fiora is probably most used hero out there. She fits in almost any team, either debuff team or buff team. Mostly in buff team use Holy Shield. Both activations at 60%, so it's above average. But you'll see her Holy Shield triggers a lot more than Retribution. The way Holy Shield works is a little bit tricky, and we'll get into it when we start doing some plays. Retribution is whenever her ally loses, she'll debuff her opponent, and 2 on the right for 40%. That's a Retribution 2. This is Retribution 3 on Mojian. Higher activation, same debuff power. Indomitable 3 is similar to Azula Shake It Off, but it triggers off of his teammates. So whenever his teammates' power is debuff, he will buff himself 30%. Kuroshobi Crippling Blow is good against Azula or Fiora with their buff power. So whenever her enemy is buffed, she will debuff her enemy 35%. Activation of 100%, so it happens every time. Shuriken and Hit Wounds are used sometimes, but their activation are low, so it's not the best. Alicia buff is pretty good, but she buff herself, so it's not that great. Battlecry 3 is probably the easiest one to go with. Dragon Dance if you want to gamble and get a little bit more power. Melina nobody use, Irene nobody use. Kuru is used in the 1st or 2nd slot for Intimidate. Pretty normal debuff power. Palash, I was trying to use Palash for his True Shot ability. Now, activation is only 75%, so it's okay. It's pretty good, but then I found that Mila is better. It's the same move basically. True Shot and Sleight of Hand. Sleight of Hand activation is 5% more, so I've been using her instead of Palash. The debuff was 50%, which is good. Francesca, another one that can be used in debuff or buff team. Oh well, guerrilla warfare is really to counter opponents' Luca fear repairs. So if opponents using heroes that has break items, then she will buff herself 40% every time an item breaks in the enemy lines. Repel Magic 3 is another good anti-buff spells. Activation says 40%, but I feel like it happens a lot more than that. Naya has Repel Magic 2, a lower version of Repel Magic 3. Words of Wisdom, you see somebody use her for Words of Wisdom sometimes to get an early buff to make sure that the first 3 slots will win. Either her or Dathos will be there. Lancaster nobody really use. Odette used with Sheep Shot or Slice and Dice. Activation of 100%, so it will happen. You just have to make sure you can win that slot. Slice and Dice will buff for a lot of power, 80%, and Cheap Shot will debuff for 40%. Onira Purified is an opposite of Repel Magic. So whenever her team get debuffed, she will buff. Activation is saying 40%, but it happens a lot more than that. And 35% is about the same. I think Francesca is 25%, but yeah. Sometimes you see her in a second or 4th slot. You see her in 4th slot more, but she might be in the 2nd slot. Depending on which team it is, she could be using Screech, but it has less activation percentage than Smoke Bomb, so people use Luca more. Here's Dathos with Improvisation. He's best in the 5th slot, but people normally put him in 4th because the 5th slot is reserved for Luca. Similar to Words of Wisdom, where he wants to buff the early teammates to make sure that they can win. Clovis, nobody used Clovis. He's not that great. Same with Corral. Gareth, I've been using Gareth for Master Thief against a buff team. So basically trying to overbuff my team so that I can beat them. Albert Purify 2, and sometimes Repel Magic 1. Sometimes. So these 2 spells are depending on the situation. I've seen people use Song of Valor for a trick move, and it works sometimes it doesn't. Min for Retribution 1, and Theo for Vengeance Aura. These 2 guys I leave naked just to make sure their ability triggers, because when they lose, especially Theo, when he loses, he buff his team for 30%. Okay, so those are the hero abilities. Once you play with it enough, you'll probably remember. My play style is a lot of gamble. I gamble a lot on these. You don't have to follow everything I do, but if you want to pick something up and try to make it yours, go right ahead. But I'm doing what I feels right. I've seen a few video and look at some of the guys, but I'm trying to do my own thing sometimes too. Well, let's look at some of the plays. So this team I have right here is my standard debuff team. I have 3 Retribution, Flurry of Knives, and Sleight of Hand. Excuse me. If you don't have Lorelei, you can use Luca with her Smoke Bomb, or Onira Screech, but Smoke Bomb's better. has a higher percentage of activation. See our first opponent's team here. So I don't know how this team's going to play. I know Edward's going to buff, but I can't tell if Fiora, Morgian, Francesca, and Luca are going to buff also. I'm going to skip this team because I don't know how to beat this for sure. I can gamble, but I'd rather just, let's skip this team. This team here is a debuff team. Power relatively normal. How do I counter this? Okay. I can use my team right here to fight. So let's just fight, see what happens. Well, with this team, with my team here, I'm planning to win with the last 3 slots. So as long as I can debuff them more than they can, I can win here. So that's pretty easy. Select. Let's go to the next one. Another debuff team. Similar setup with Intimidate, Retribution, and Repel Magic. So I'm just gonna keep going. One thing I want to say though is I liked a buff team more than a debuff team because going by numbers alone, buff team has higher percentage activation than debuff. That's one of the reasons why I like to play buff team more than debuff, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. This team here I can pretty easily beat by doing this right here. Put Odette there, Fiora here, Francesca here, Gareth here, and Luca here. First slot have Slice and Dice against Dior. You can beat for sure. So the rest, this is probably one of my favorite setup that I use against an opponent field repairs, because my hero's power aren't that high. So I'm trying to overbuff my team to make sure I can win. So let's see. Slice and Dice is really good with 80% increase. You can see my team has already break the limit there. Power is just crazy. So I can skip this. I already win the first 3 slots, so I don't need to keep playing. Sometimes it's all about finding out which 3 you can win with, and then you're good to go. This is a debuff team. I'm gonna use the same debuff team. If you follow the post that the forum post that I put in Facebook with a guide from Akerson, you'll see that there's like a cycle of who beats who. I tried to follow that, but it didn't really work out for me because my powers aren't that high. So I'm trying to, I think a debuff team. But then again, this is a debuff slash anti buff because of Francesca, and I can actually beat him with an anti debuff team also. But let's go with this. Let me change Fiora to Retribution. Oh wow, hamstring. Okay. So you see sometimes I'm in a tough spot right now because Retribution didn't trigger in the beginning, but I'm good. Okay, so that you'll see sometimes even if my min loses, the Retribution will not trigger at all, which is really bad because you want your Retribution to trigger. This one is a buff team, but Francesca in the middle is tricky. But since Dior is there, we're kind of lucky. So let's go with this Odette. Change to the Holy Shield. And this is all you have to do. I know it can get pretty annoying sometimes, but you'll have to change your team a lot to counter. So I'm hoping. The reason I put Onera there is because I'm trying to gauge if his Francesca used repel magic or not. Because I've seen certain teams that has Francesca in the middle and use repel magic and just rip my team apart because I don't have a Purify to counter. So I'm going to use this team setup. Odette Slice and Dice again is buff for a lot of power, so let's go. Oh no, so she used Guerrilla Warfare also. Okay, that's fine. With this team, I would use. So if I know that Francesca used Guerrilla Warfare, I would probably use Gareth in the 4th slot instead of Onera. It's also not 100% that Holy Shield will trigger. So sometimes I lose because Holy Shield doesn't trigger enough, especially against a team with a lot more power. Yeah, already won the first 3, so okay here. This team is interesting because Dior in the beginning is kind of weird. His team is really low too, power wise. I can just do this right here. Put Azula there for Shake It Off, and let me just get crazy. So with Holy Shield, the way it works right here, when the Francesca debuff my team, uh, it triggers Fiora's Holy Shield, and that's it. Even with Onira Purify, it will not trigger Holy Shield twice. It only works one time, basically. And by that I mean it works because of Francesca debuff. That's one instance. So beyond that, it will not happen unless if you see like Francesca and Naya together, and then they debuff twice and shake it off happen twice, then it could potentially trigger Holy Shield twice. But that's a different scenario. This is just the ability that I was talking about with Datho's improvisation. He wants to buff his early teammates to get more power. I'm gonna try to beat with my Francesca Gareth combo. Hopefully this will work. Theo in front, because I can't use Odette there. I can't beat Odette. I mean, I can't beat her Fiora. So I missed when Gareth activated his Master Thief the first time. Fiora didn't trigger, so I missed one already. Same thing with Francesca Guerrilla Warfare. Fiora Holy Shield didn't trigger, so I missed twice. And sometimes I just miss just enough that I can't beat my opponent and I lose, which is unfortunate, but it happened because only 60% activation. So you can see here that my power has already went up sky high. So this is easy. Let me skip here. So there you go. 7 games. Different ways to play, depending on your opponent's team. I'm gonna stop here. I don't want to make this video so long. So if you guys have any questions, let me know in Facebook, or you can find me online in the game. Alright, see you guys later.